All right, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Here we are, we're gonna look at more from the Blackmagic Pyxis footage that I shot with the team down in Margaret River. I asked if anybody wanted to see more, you guys said yes, so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're also gonna look at a little bit of behind the scenes. I'm terrible at behind the scenes. And I'm terrible at behind the scenes because usually none of the companies that you shoot this behind the scenes stuff will allow you to show it. So what's the point of doing it if you can't show other people, right? If you can't rub it in their face that you're working and they're not, what's the point of behind the scene images? I just don't understand. If you like this stuff, if you want to see more of it, the spot to do it is Patreon. You can support the channel down in the link below. And I get it, right? It's way more fun. It's way more beneficial for me. It's way less stressful for me when I'm breaking down my own work than when I'm looking at other people's stuff. Except it's really hard to do that. Why? Because on real jobs in the real world, people that you shoot for, they don't want you actively breaking down the stuff that you're working on. You're there to do a job, right? You're not there to have a little YouTube channel on the side, but slowly but surely people are coming around to it. So you never know. I might do more of this stuff, but I certainly do more of it over on Patreon where there's a little tiny wall between us and the real world. So if you like it, that's the spot. I've also been doing these breakdowns. Granted, they're significantly worse because it's a podcast. I've been doing these breakdowns for almost 10 years on the podcast. So if you are new to the channel and you want a back catalog of all the jobs that I have shot in my entire career and exactly how I lit them, you can find it, Wandering DP Podcast. Check it out. Okay, all of that being said, let's jump into our little scene here. And, oh, I should say another thing. If you're looking at this footage, right, the best thing to do is to go to the link in the description below and watch it on the Blackmagic YouTube page, because there you can actually download the original footage. And also, I think you can download the footage for the ungraded raw stuff. I know they have some examples up on their website. That's the best place to do it, right? This is screen recorded. It adds a bunch of contrast where it shouldn't be. It's not a great way to do it, but it's the only way we have. So let's be thankful. Okay, so we're starting off. I think the main thing people wanted to see was the night breakdown stuff. So let's get to the night breakdown stuff. Oh, actually, let's do the questions first, the questions and the comments. So if we go to the first one here, this is probably the biggest one that I saw because I often say this, and it's, could you not have crossed the line from the sofa wide to have a far side key for the French over singles? We see this all the time in commercials, continuity right out the window as long as it looks good, and also in the feature films. I believe this is my mantra. In fact, you're right, Robin. This is my mantra. Just make every shot look good. You know how you never get fired? You just make every shot look nice. But you say, no, it doesn't match continuity. All of a sudden, people are looking different ways on different screens. That's somebody else's job. Let them worry about it, especially in the commercial space. Like, what are we doing here? Just make every shot look great. Right? Allow someone else to rein you in. Now, let's examine why I wouldn't have done that in this case. So we get the people to sit down, right? And I would have said in the bar scenario, which is two people facing the same direction, right? We have unique lighting challenges that we don't have if they're facing each other, right? If they're looking at one another this way, that's a unique set of challenges. Bar scene, they're looking this way. As we come in for this shot, as we come in for the coverage, ideally, because the key light is on this side of the frame, right? Key light over here. And it's blasting in all of this level, which is providing all of this wrap. We want to be on the other side because it's going to flatten off. As we come in for the coverage, when I say flatten off, I mean here. See how we've got all the key light pushing the same way the camera is looking. This isn't good for shape. Why is it not good for shape? Because you have all this lit up. We want the least amount lit up and the most amount in darkness. Right? And you don't want to go so dark that it is completely black. You just want that nice fall off into the toe. You know the look that I'm talking about. If we come here, you'll see like this single. This single is way harder to make look nice than the single I'm just about to show you from the nighttime. Why is that? Let's just rewind just a little bit right there. Okay, you see the light in her eyes. Number one, we have to put that light in there. As soon as you start adding lights, what happens? Things get more complicated. What are we? Not very good at cinematography. What don't we want to do? Add complication. Okay, you definitely don't want to add complicated things to your shoot day because, I mean, especially as you're starting out, chances are you're the best person at all of the jobs on set. That should be a red flag that at that point in your career, you're not doing that great, right? You're at a bad spot. You want to get out of that spot as fast as you can. And I get it. You got to get better jobs to do that, to get out. Okay. But as soon as you have people that are better than you on the crew, you want to lean into them. You don't want to be juggling multiple variables. They can only do so much. The crew can only do so much. So you want to keep it very limited to the window that actually makes a difference. Here, as you start adding level, now you have to start balancing. And if you're not good, you're going to start to panic. You're going to be like, oh, just add a little bit more, add a little bit less. And I say this, I really mean me. Like anytime I start adding things, I'm like, oh, this is only going to get worse, right? It's not going to look natural. Why? Because we have an 8-foot octabox over here in the room with this lady. Is that natural? Yes or no? No. If you do have an octabox in your living room, something's wrong. Okay. So what we really would like to see rather than that angle is, let's go to the nighttime stuff and let's go to her single looking back this way, is this. This significantly easier to make look nice, right? Because we can depends. If you want like this, there's not a whole lot of mood here, right? We could get way more down in the levels. This is pretty heavily keyed up here. If we wanted to get even moodier, yeah, you could do some stuff with the level in terms of the light. You could do some stuff with the softness. We could maybe take this edge light here and just push it around a little bit more, even though we were shooting full frame. So we didn't know if we were going to finish in full frame or not. You'd like to get this little backlight as opposed, rather than over here where it's hitting, pretty much the whole side of her face here. Notice it's not hitting her nose. That's a no-no. Don't do that. But ideally, you'd have it here so it didn't come quite around as much because it sort of flattens off that hair. But it is dark hair against a white background, so we wanted to bring it out just a little bit. But here, you got way more shape. So if you want more mood, say you want it to be, I don't know, you just want it to be a little bit moodier, a little bit darker down. What do? You crab left on the camera. So you're seeing less of the light side of the face, and you're looking more into the dark side of the face. Okay, this is the line. This is the side of the line that you want to be on for maximum mood control. Right? Because it's very easy for the cinematographer now to be standing at the camera. This is especially true when you have, and which is why I always say, if you can, right, if you can afford the extra $50, chuck it on the slider. Chuck a slider on top of the dolly, on top of the tripod, not so you can actually slide during the move, but so you can be in control of these little tiny micro movements as you're sitting down for this shot. What would be better is this, like, oh, it'd be nicer if we just had a little bit more mood. How do you get that mood? You just crab left, just a tiny bit, right? So we end up seeing maybe, 10% less of her face and 10% more into the darkness. You're like, how much is that going to make a difference? It makes a big difference. Okay. So you could easily do that. That's how you control it, just on the slider. You just move it over. If you don't have the slider, you got to pick up the sticks. They weigh 50 pounds. By the time you pick them up, now the head's not level. Now it takes you 5 minutes to readjust. Nightmare, right? Don't do that. Let's think ahead. What are the adjustments that we're going to be making that need speed? One of them is going to be this exact thing. Same with the up and down height. Like if you're on a tripod, like just to get this thing an inch lower, that's like a 30-second process. If you add that over 20 shots over the entire day, you've just wasted whatever that is, half an hour of time, rather than just say, hey, why don't we just get the dolly out? And the producer's going to say, but we're not actually using the dolly. And you say, we're using the dolly. Right? We're just not using the dolly for any moves in the actual shot. Just something to think about. So this is the French over. Why didn't we do that? Let's get back to the original question. Why didn't we do that on the daytime stuff? And the answer is, when you have a schedule that you have to stick to and you have to move quite quickly, notice what we do not do. We never look over here, right? We never ever look over here. Why? Because looking over here means, number one, we'd see our entire behind the scenes crew. We'd be looking at me because I'm parked over there as well. And all of our infrastructure is out there. So we are lit, ready to go to make this angle of the room look good. Anything outside of this scope, just from a schedule point of view, is going to take too much time. We don't have the ability to reset. We've got too much stuff to make it through on this day with the number of crew that we have. So that limits your options. We cannot, and notice, you can also see it, like if we were going to do traditional matching coverage here between these two, we're going to shoot an over the shoulder here of our girl, and then maybe we shoot inside of the conversation as well for something closer. And we're going to do the same for him, right? For this guy, we need a matching shot. But notice how we do not do that. So we cut straight down the line, which is sort of a no-no. We cut straight down the line, and then we come, look at his coverage. Like we just want to go at that window. We do not want to go back this way, because back that way is all of our gear and the entire crew. So here's this is still, this is like the 77, just a longer lens version of it. But definitely not looking back there. Imagine if we were on the other side, right? If we're on the other side and the shot ends up looking like this, well, now we have to redo this window. we have to bring the key and wrap it around from this way, redo the soft hub. There's just lots and lots to get through. So I would say if we were in a commercial world where you had like 5 and 5 and you could instantly bash this thing out and swap the reverse in 15 minutes, yes, I would absolutely advocate for it. I would never say don't do it because it doesn't match continuity-wise. I would let someone else make that call. And just to give you an idea of how close to the edge of frame we are all standing, if we go to, let's see, behind the scenes video, where would that be? I think it's this one. If we come here to this behind the scenes, so here's the photographer, right? Photographer taking behind the scenes images of this setup here while we're shooting. Notice the camera on the slide over there. So this is the setup for our 2-shot inside that room. Okay, master wheels, yes. Camera over there, so I don't have to be near it. I can just be sitting here nicely, cappuccino just here. You can see how close they are to the edge of the frame. I mean, they are on the edge of the frame. You can also see just how much neg is all around the place and where the lighting is. But that's why we don't switch, because we would have to move all of this stuff and all of these people, right? See there's a little overhang too here. That is our backlight. You see it if we get out of that. You see that backlight there. Okay, that's this little bit here. It's like just taking that edge and just pulling them out just a tiny bit. Okay, let's go to the next question, which I think was something along the same lines, which is, what did you do in post? I'd like to see the grade. Go to the Blackmagic page, download the actual raw files. There you'll be able to see what we did. You can compare and contrast. That's how you learn things. You compare and contrast. This one, I love this comment. It'd be cool and frankly very informative to look at a false color image of these shots to get a better understanding of how to shoot. You sound like me in 2012. This is exactly how I learned cinematography. I, for years, spent every single day downloading all the footage I could possibly get of finished graded projects and running them through Flanders, an FSI monitor, in false color, just to see what the levels were. And you start to pattern match and you start to see, oh, they're doing the same thing every single time. It's in a different location, it's in a different environment, but the levels are set the exact same. So go to the Blackmagic page, download the footage, just put the normal, whatever it is, the 709 or whatever the standard Blackmagic LUT is on top, and you'll see exactly what we shot on the day. It should look pretty close to what we actually got on the day. Final comment, you said something in the video at 12:10 in the past one, which prompted me to ask, do you shoot as though you aren't going to color grade? Well, I try and make it look as nice as I can, because I know in the commercial world, I'm not going to be asked back. I'm not going to be asked for my opinion. It doesn't matter how many times they say that they're going to do that. You never get asked, right? Because these things, there's timelines, you're on other jobs. You have to make it look as good as you can on the day. But I know that we're going to be grading in post. So if there are problems, like let's go back to something like this. If there's a problem somewhere and it's like a window, well, then you just get the camera team to note it in the notes. And you say, hey, take this window down. Like this should be way lower. Now, you cannot be disappointed when that doesn't happen because no one listens to you and nobody cares. As soon as the job is over, the editor, they're doing their own thing. The colorist, they're doing their own thing. Maybe you get a little insight if it's a friend from film school, but probably not. You probably don't even get a call. Okay, let's actually go to the nighttime stuff so we can break down what we did. And not this stuff, here. So this stuff is a mix of the anamorphic and a mix of the tribes. I like this shot only because I'm trying to get as much depth in here as you can. And again, full frame, anamorphic, wide open. What happens is it flattens off. It flattens off really, really quickly. So anything that you can throw in the frame to be between you and the subject is going to make it feel that much of a richer experience. That's what we're trying to do in something like that. And again, these little numbers here, we're just adding bulbs in the background to not make it the same color. So any contrast, any color contrast at that point is easy. Let's go to the wide. I think that's the widest shot there. Is it? Little knife number. Okay, here. I would say here, this is not my favorite frame. In fact, I'm not a big fan of this frame at all. Why? Because she's way over here. She's way over here and we have nothing in here. Okay? But this is a situation where if you don't have, like we didn't really have a set production designer here. We were just using whatever was in the location. So we went through, I showed you the behind the scenes pictures last time. We went through and I just rated every single prac that was in the place. We didn't like pre-scout to go, oh, this is the exact prac that we need, or this is the exact table that we need. So we're just using what's there. Here in the background, you can see this little lamp here. This is just diffusion rolled around a aperture bulb in there. If you didn't have that, it would just be the bare aperture bulb, which doesn't look that good. Same for this thing. This is, I don't even know if there is a little plug in there. Maybe there is. But this is just grabbed from some other room. And this is the exact same spot that we shot this in, right? We've just got a different sofa. And so I added a table over there, and then I added that lamp because we want some depth, right? We're trying to get stuff between us and the rest of the scene in the foreground. Now, could we have moved it a little bit closer? Could it have been a little bit more out of focus? It's like, it would be nicer if this was higher, because this is a big empty area. It'd be nicer if this was higher, and maybe this lamp came down in like this area. Okay, but that's the idea. We're trying to get stuff between the frame, between us and the person that we're shooting. For level now, or for lighting, what we're doing is we're using that same kit that we just saw in the behind the scenes to boom over a little Titan tube bag with, I think there's 2 Titan tubes in there. So that should give you an idea of the sense of how much light is in the space. It's not a lot of light, okay? It's not a lot of light because for the majority of the setup, we were trying to actually use the daylight that was remaining outside. It was an overcast day, but we were trying to catch this daylight so that we wouldn't have to light up back there. Because again, we're a small crew. You don't want to be lighting 15 different areas. It just gets really, really complicated really fast. Unfortunately, we didn't make it in time. So out here, I think is just a standard Titan tube. And I think there's Titan tubes out each window. So for this scene, we were shooting at 1250, I think. This is the one where we upped the ISO just to give it a little test. And then we're using that bag over the top with the 2 Titan tubes pointing this way, okay? And then we've got our prac. We've got our prac in the back room here. We've got another little LED, and then out the window, we've got our Titan tubes. So that is the setup. Here, we could probably even have used more sofa. Like, we want more angles coming at us. We want something a little bit more 3-dimensional than this, but we had to get the fire in the shot. We had to get her face in the shot. And then we did like a little slider move over to meet them, which I think is coming up. There's nothing here, right? Just over the shoulder. Make it slightly more interesting by having, you know, his blobby head in the way. From there, we go back to this shot. I mean, this is crazy. Like Lethal Weapon 1980s style blue out there. We could probably pull that back. We keep going. And ta-da. Okay, first of all, this here, again, we don't really have an eye light. If you wanted to, we could come down with something and just put an eye light in there. It would make it a lot more, it would make it feel a lot more alive. But we've got just the bag over the top, which gives us this. And 1, 2, 3. Then we've got his face, his lit up face. We want lined up to where the color is. We don't want this color lined up with this part of the face. So this is where you do have the freedom to move up and down the sofa, up and down, so that you're setting the person to the background. Okay, these are the things that as a cinematographer, when everyone else is doing their jobs, you're just sitting on the apple box next to the camera going, if we put his head there, it's going to be slightly worse. If we put his head there, it's going to be slightly better. Let's opt for the slightly better. And then you just shuffle the sofa down, and pretty soon you've got his face exactly where you want it on the background, right? Because we're looking for that separation. We've got our little edge light here, just slightly pulling her away from being completely dark, because completely dark is not good. Background here, you can see just how much haze is in this place. Now, if you had unlimited resources, what are we feeling isn't working about this shot? I would say it would have been cool to have a prac over here, right? Have a prac on some sort of a bench. This is the shade, out comes the light, and you just get a little bit of fall off over here, because this is where it starts to get pretty flat. But this is also where you can see the haze working at such a high ISO, plus haze, plus wide open lens. I mean, we're reaching into the shadows there. There's no light back there, but you still manage to pick up all the little elements there. And when we come around, same thing. It's like, could we have, in an ideal world, maybe we would have shunted her over, basically to here, so that half of her face, this is the dark half, this is her eyeball that's lit up, is maybe against the blue a little bit more, and the dark part of her face is maybe against the darker bit of the wall back there. But now you can see why we put that prac in there, just to keep it down, give it a little life. Again, why this edge light comes around so much is because we were shooting full frame. We couldn't get above here, or it would feel too above. So we had to go from the side. And as you go from the side, what happens is you're pushing the light at her, too much. So all of this, like we could have cleaned that up fairly easily if we would have had maybe decided on a different aspect ratio or just committed to the 240 as opposed to not knowing what we were going to do. You see her highlight is a little bit better there. We're getting a lot more wrap, and it's super easy. This is the point where as soon as you set up this wide, like we don't really have to do anything. Whereas, oh, you can actually see the tube back there, can't you? Looks like a nice little highlight. Yeah, and it's like you've got a couple different choices here on the blue. You could either desaturate that, which would probably be the go. You could desaturate that, or instead of going moonlight there, you know, sometimes you want like a gradient to race down the shears, but this is why you have shears. If you didn't have shears, it would just be a giant black hole out there that you couldn't light. So if you wanted to make this like it was in the city, which is oftentimes like you see it in like a New York loft film or something like that, what they'll do is they'll use the sodium vapor tube from the bottom and just add like a warm gradient from the bottom is where it is hot, and then it just trickles off to darkness up the top. Here we're just doing moonlight up there, right? Pretty heavily stylized moonlight as well. But even in a situation like this, we're trying for, he reaches up his hand. We got his head, we got arm, we got this sofa thing between us and her already. Like how much more stuff can we pack in there to make it feel just a little bit more dense? So I think that's the go for the nighttime stuff. Haze, 1250 ISO, wide open on the lens. And yeah, I think that does it. Anything else to think about there? No, I would say more pracs would have been better. Other than that, I think that's it. There was one more, let's see, behind the scenes stuff. Oh, I wanted to do this video. There's this one. Nope. Yes, this one. So this is just to give you an idea. This was after we had finished that car setup one. So this is the dolly track here. Let's go in a little bit. Actually, let's rewind. You got, hello, Mr. Grip, gaffer over there, lighting assistant over here, photographer, and let's move in. We got the 4K over there, which has got a little diffusion, and we've got the sun over here, which you're about to see, I think, as it comes in the frame. Ta-da! There's the sun over there. There's the grip. There's the lighting team, and there's the camera. Look at this. Phase 1 on the photographer. Good for you. There's the camera, how it's rigged, right? It's just straight on a pole. It's going straight through. And we actually ended up taking away some of the neg that was there for the motion stuff. But you can see the little cocoon that is created around the camera, or around where that lady, the female talent, where she steps out of the car. And that's it, right? That's the little behind the scenes number. And you can see just how harsh the sun is. Like that's what it looks like, front lit, right? Not great. So we want to make it slightly backlit. So you angle the car. Like, is the car in a proper parking spot? No. But nobody cares, right? You just pull the car up to where you've got something. See how the background is at least backlit? So at least we don't have to deal with the front light of the actual sun. So it's those little tiny things like, oh, we just changed the orientation of the car. You put the thing on a dolly. You put it on a big long pipe. You got yourself a little video. And finally, the drone stuff. Is this the drone stuff? No, drone stuff is here. This is the drone. You asked, or I said, what is a cinematographer doing? This is the final shot of the ad. What is a cinematographer doing when the drone stuff is happening? I'm standing here behind everybody else. This is the director. I'm standing here behind everybody else doing behind the scenes stuff, because you got the little drone over there. You can see it flying. That's its final position. You've got the pilot over here. You got focus puller extraordinaire there, and you have the camera operator here. I'm not doing anything. I'm just shouting, it could be darker. And then you iris down. It is, yeah. I mean, you come up with a plan for what the shot is going to be. And then you're just standing there going, ooh, could we make it better? Let's try it again. Let's do it this way. There's not a whole lot to it for input. It's just the ideas. And this is why it's important that you know this stuff before. And if you're trying to come up with this when you're there on the day, it's going to be trouble, because you're trying to think through all the different processes. Like, what's the most important thing that I know will be 80% of making the image halfway decent? We have to get it backlit. Okay, so that out the gate first. What's the other things? We need as much depth as possible. It's like you only get 1 or 2 cues. This is a professional team. These drone folks, they were awesome. So, tip of the video, get people who are really good at their jobs to do their jobs. Then you don't have to really coach them that much. So you offer input, you get maybe one or two things, you see it on the monitor, maybe you get one or two more little things, and then that's it. The shot's done. The sunset has happened. Okay, it's over. You don't get another go at it. So I think that's it. I think that's the video done. We've done now the day interior stuff. We've done the night interior stuff. I will say that, you know, never having worked with these cameras before, or even a camera at this level, seeing what it's capable of was pretty awesome. And just thinking then, how can I incorporate it into my own workflow? How can I incorporate this camera or the ideas that you learn on these sets? Like after you do a job, every time you're looking for, how can I take this and make the jobs that I do normally better? Like I should be getting 1% better every job. So what did I learn this time? I learned that normally on a commercial, what will happen is you'll have like a little director's viewfinder. Sometimes people use still cameras. I used my stills camera for a long time. It's like, I want to get ahead of the actual physical camera. I want to get to the space. I want to see what lens we're going to be on, because the more you're flip-flopping the lens, the more the people in the crew, they're flip-flopping the lens for you rather than doing other jobs. And I want to maximize their time doing other stuff that actually moves the needle. I don't want to be making them switch lenses on the camera 15 times before we actually start. So you get a little director's viewfinder. The director's viewfinder that I normally use, which is just an optical viewfinder, you plug the lens on there, and then you have to physically show the director, be like, hey, this is my idea, what do you think? And then they have to get in the position. That physical viewfinder is more expensive than this camera. So for me, it's like, well, I could get this camera and I could just record the viewfinder, and then I could just have it linked up to the monitor, so I could be ahead of everyone else in the team. And you're thinking, well, how much money could that actually save being ahead of the team? Well, if I've got 20 people in the crew and I can save 5 minutes every single setup doing this method, over the course of a day, how much more time do I actually have to light things then? How much more time do I actually have to put the value on the screen itself? It's an astronomical number. The other thing is, it is without a doubt, it will happen to you in your commercial life. Everybody always says, oh, we want to get that last light look. We want to get the final little bit of drain from the sky, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be epic. You're going to schedule for that. You're going to schedule to be there, and you're going to get the sunset shot that everybody thinks is awesome because you're going to play it super safe. And then they're going to start packing the trucks up. Everyone's going to go home. Everyone's going to start making their way back home or back to home base. And you're going to be there with the director, and you're going to be talking about how, man, that was a good shoot, but did we wait until the right time? And you can't really wait because you got 50 people in the crew and nobody wants to pay overtime. But if you had a little tiny camera that you just had with you all the time, that had the quality of this camera, imagine what you could do. It's like you would never have to feel that experience of driving away from set. And as you're driving, you see now that magic hour has finally hit that perfect time and everybody's home, and you just like, man, if I could just pull over and we could just if we just had the one talent, we could do the whole scene now and it would be amazing. And this is the look that we wanted the whole time, but we had to play it safe, or we had to get it done in 10 hours. It's like having this little compact body, full frame that matches the Mini LF to the extent that it does. It's like, I don't know. For me, it seems like a no-brainer that I probably won't be using a director's viewfinder that is not a camera now on jobs, just because of how much value it's going to add to the final production. There's really no benefit to the optical viewfinder when this thing is better and it's less money. So I don't know, just for myself, something that it can fit into the workflow, and that's awesome. Anyway, if you got more questions about this shoot or about the camera or about any of the other things, best spot to find me is over on Patreon in the Discord channel. Other than that, we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.